king and took away a leader of the movement and then gave Negroes a holiday. So you have a holiday, but you don't have a movement anymore. And that was the objective, to destroy a revolutionary movement. Did you listen to what you heard just now, just a few minutes we heard from King's speech? That's on that speech. He also said that America is the greatest purveyor of violence in the world. King said that. Anybody who saw the last speech that King made is very clear that King knew he was going to die. He had been told over and over again by Hoover, they had tried to make him commit suicide, etc. But he did not compromise on his belief. And he stood there. That's why he had to go to the mountaintop. I've been to the mountaintop, he said. I've been to the mountaintop. And I saw ourselves as the free people. I may not get there with you, but I know we will get to the mountaintop. And he knew he wasn't going to place because he knew the American government was going to kill him. And I think it's really important to say that the American government killed Martin Luther King. I think that's very important to say the American government killed Martin Luther King. And there's reason that we can say that, of course, is because even today they talk about how they love King and they respect King, and Barack Hussein Obama, most reactionary white people in the world come out about King, and they use King against us. They tell us that King was about you judge somebody on the content of their character and not on some other kind of stuff, and they use that as an attack on black people who are trying to forge and get ahead and saying what imperialism, the United States government, owes us as a people. So King now has, in the possession of our enemies, has become a weapon against black people, the interests of black people. And it wasn't just that someday somebody woke up and say, let's have a bus boycott and do all this other kind. Something critical was happening in this country, in the whole world. And what had happened when King made that speech, what had happened was King had come around to some of the positions that the rest of us had come to earlier when we started talking about black power, and we began to talk about how the struggle in this country was united with the struggle against colonialism by the vast majority of peoples around the world. You listen to King. Nobody wanted King to make that speech who was in the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. They all warned him, don't bring up this international stuff. Martin, and he went against them all, against most of his so-called advisors, allies, and what have you, when he took the stance around Vietnam. And when he took the stance around Vietnam, this was an anti-colonial stance. And what you saw happening is a marriage between the struggle of African people in this country and struggles not only of people in Vietnam, but he mentioned Cambodia. He mentioned Peru. He mentioned Venezuela. He mentioned some of the same places in the world today where people are engaged in struggle trying to free themselves from imperialist white power.
Woke up this morning with freedom, freedom on my mind. I woke up this morning with freedom, freedom on my mind, on my mind, on my mind, on my mind. One more time. Woke up this morning with freedom, freedom. This freedom is to live in fear, and I can't, because freedom is all I want, and all I wants to know, and until all my peoples is free, every man, woman, child, I steals away, steal away, steal away. Got steal away, steal away, and steal away home, steal away, having got long to stay here, having got long to stay here, having got long to stay here.
And then they identified North St. Louis, where you find primarily the African population, and they designated it as an area of blight and suggested that no economic development should come to this community until such time that massive economic development could be done in like one fell swoop. So they recommended that no economic development come to North St. Louis. So as a consequence, you have over 25,000 abandoned buildings. You've had an increase in crime, no services whatsoever except the bare minimum, trash pickup and police to contain the devastation that they created. And so the LRA process, the LRA was designated as that entity that would allow them to bank land, to hold land. Like you have a savings account at a bank, they would just begin to accumulate property and land and hold this property and land until they desired to sell it to large-scale developers. And so they have all of these properties, and they make it difficult for African people or any person with very limited resources to acquire this land because they have all these stipulations. And so Deputy Chairman Omali Yeshitela, she came in St. Louis, she identified this institution, she navigated it, she got all the information, she went in, she made contacts, and she fought for the process, and we purchased many of these properties directly from the LRA, who are now selling the properties, but primarily for white developers. So this is a critical thing, and we also want to teach that process to people so that we can struggle to get back our land and hold our land. So housing has been secured at prices less than a car. So this is the consequence of all of this lack of development, is that housing prices have dropped in addition to what we saw in 2008, 2009. So now we are able to at least purchase properties at prices that are less than a car. The properties of APEDF and Black Star Industries can be made available for organizers, for participants of the African Workforce Program, and for the African community. Black Star Industries and the APEDF are taking back the value of African labor to benefit the African working class, mobilizing all African contractors and skilled African and Mexican tradesmen and women. Over 35 people and companies were met with, bids were submitted, and reviewed to choose the team that would begin the transformation of the future Uhuru House. So we got bids for creating outdoor venues. And so we've had to really undergo this entire process of economic development, and that's not what we specialize in. But we've purchased these properties, we're organizing contractors, and we're turning these dilapidated properties. The Uhuru House, for example, had been abandoned for 12 years. So you know what happens when a building that is abandoned. First the roof goes, then the elements come in, then the floor goes, and everything starts to rot. So we took this and transformed it. We're organizing workers, laborers, and struggling to fight against gentrification. In conclusion, for the past 600 years, Africa's land, labor, and resources have been used to make Europe and America rich, while simultaneously making Africa and Africans poor. But APEDF is overturning that. The Black Power Blueprint, which is a project of APEDF, is overturning that. We say Uhuru Jiko Commercial Kitchen is overturning that. One Africa, One Nation Marketplace is overturning that. And the Uhuru houses are overturning that. The NTU Volunteer Brigade, the brigade that organizes volunteers to work on these projects, is overturning that. So what can you do to change this? You can volunteer at Uhuru Furniture and Collectibles, as you are today, and we thank you.
white comrades and the African leadership that you have seen speak to you this morning. I have to say this is one of the most powerful things that can happen in a city where we can be self-determined, where we can have our dollars operating for ourselves, and to be in a place and time where I've seen it happening on both coasts, and it's now on its move to the Midwest, or it's now on its move to St. Louis. If you have not put $5, $1.
Actually, I'm kind of new to this party still, but I envision something bigger than myself. So that's why I'm volunteering for this project today on MLK Day. And eventually I want to do more for my community, for more Africans worldwide. And that's why I'm here today. Thank you.
So I just want to encourage any Africans who are in the building, if you've been around back and forth, you know, it's a very welcoming, none of y'all and Tiffany, they've been great. But I challenge myself to be a little bit more consistent with my volunteer work, because the struggle ahead is long, but the beautiful thing is the victory is already ours.
I'm here actually with some New York people from the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. Ruby talked a little bit about the Solidarity Movement. It's really my honor to be here. Today is actually the first day I've been to the furniture store here, though I've been to the institutions of the party all around the country. And it's just such an amazing, beautiful space and opportunity to be here. And
I believe in freedom for my people. And this is a movement that show you can be an African working class person, and you can actually do work and build. And this institution here is a fine example of it. As the speakers before me have said, that we have many institutions. We're not just talking about it; we're being about it. We're going to change the world. You know, we're not. You know, we're changing the narratives. We're changing the world.
Derek Myers.
Thank you.
Stay right there. Stay right there. That's it. Thank you so much.
And I want to let everybody know we got out 4,260 door hangers today.